Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college football. It is rivalry week, the final week of the regular season, where the games just mean more and two teams that are going to be getting together that just simply don't like each other. We have a whole lot of those matchups here in the final week of the regular season before we get into the championship conference championship week in a week from now, and in the college football playoff, and in all of the crazy bowl games where a lot of players will be opting out and hitting the portal. But regardless of all of that, we got ourselves a very fun week of football, and it all starts on Thanksgiving. We got the Memphis and Navy game. For all of those that will be entertained with that while you munch on some turkey. We got games on Black Friday, and we got games all across Saturday as well. I love the fact that they balance this out, that we get football on Friday and Saturday, and some massive games across the board here, across several different conferences. We're going to most certainly dive into the Mountain West because there's just so many different implications and high leverage games that are going to be played this weekend. Can't wait for it. But before we do that, I want to recap week 13. Apologies for not getting a college football recap and preview from the previous week. Had a whole lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Kind of went a little bit more on the basketball side of things last week. Gave a little 2-week update on the Mountain West and everything that's going on the college hoops front. We'll be doing a whole lot more college hoops. We're going to be bringing on a guest next week to talk conference championship previews across all different conferences. But as far as some week 13 results, UNLV at Hawaii. Look, this was a Friday night game. It was in Las Vegas. There was a whole lot on the line for the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Kind of a game that they absolutely had to win, I would say, as far as, them remaining in the conference championship conversation. Now things like they need basically every single ball to bounce their way just for them to even be considered in like a 4-way tiebreaker. They lose this game, the Rainbow Warriors, 38-10. I was very impressed with UNLV this game. UNLV 9-2 overall, 5-2 in the Mountain West, and then of course Hawaii 7-4 and 4-3 in the Mountain West. Look, I've been very critical of the UNLV defense pretty much all year. I've been kind of nitpicking them, saying, yeah, they got some playmakers here and there, but it's a revamped unit and there's so many different pieces, and it's kids on their third school, and, they're on their third school for a reason, right? They've been playing really good the past 2 weeks now. This is back-to-back week with Paul Gunther's defense where they've really strung really good performances together. So you got to give them kudos for that. And outside of really a Jackson Harris 70-yard touchdown bomb, Hawaii was pretty much held in check this entire game, which is something I totally wasn't going to say heading into this one. And, UNLV was just more sound tackling wise and, making the plays. They didn't have those, busted coverages or those mislapses that we've been accustomed to seeing every single week. They've been very much, on the spot as far as, on their assignments and things within that nature. So you got to give them their credit. And then this offense, we've been saying it. This offense is really good. I mean, 470 total yards, 250 through the air, 217 on the ground. A guy we haven't given enough credit on the UNLV offense, because when you look at Jet Thomas and what Calandria is doing with his legs, and, Jaden Bradley's had some good performances here and there, right? Like they got a bunch of dudes, right? But Kevon Lee, we didn't touch on it 2 weeks ago, but he had a game-winning touchdown versus Utah State in overtime where he just popped a run for like 25 yards to put the Rebels over the Aggies. But overall, I thought he's just been a really good RB2 behind Jet Thomas. And we know Jet Thomas, what's going on with him as far as like, hey, is he not getting as many carries as he should, or is he battling an injury, or what's going on here? Kevon Lee, whether it's been, when his number's called, he's been delivering. It's been that simple. And, I thought Jet Thomas was going to be one of these guys this year where he was going to get 25 carries a game. I think some of that might have to do with just the mobility, and they like having a lot of these, RPOs with Anthony Calandria, but Kevon Lee to bounce off of Jet Thomas's workload has been really good for this team, and he's been rising to the occasion here. I would say the past 3 weeks now, so you got to give them their credit. UNLV under Dan Mullen. I mean, look, they were picked second in the preseason polls. There were some high expectations for this group, but they've even surpassed what I even had envisioned for them. I kind of had them, third or fourth, within that range. But for them to be in the conversation once again, sure, it's been a roller coaster ride as far as their units are concerned, but the offense has most certainly been a constant. And Dan Mullen's getting a whole lot out of this group. So you got to give them, their flowers. They've handled their business and against a red hot Hawaii team that spoiled a lot of team seasons this year. And, they've been feisty in some spots. Hawaii, we like them, a few weeks ago versus San Diego State. And, they could definitely, I thought they were going to put up a whole lot of points. I had shootout written all over the place. And the fact that, the Rebels hold them to 10 points and not a whole lot of explosive plays, I was genuinely impressed with the Rebels all-around performance in that one in Las Vegas. Moving on to Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. Yeah, this was a Saturday morning kick out in the West Coast, but with Nevada and Wyoming. So Nevada wins 13-7. Nevada wins back-to-back conference games, something they've never said under the Jeff Cho era out there in Reno. They're now 3-8, 2-5 in the Mountain West. Meanwhile, Wyoming's 4-7 and 2-5 in league play after the home loss. And I thought this was the ultimate circle the wagon spot for Wyoming. When you see the Wyoming Cowboys were retiring Josh Allen's jersey, and it's going to be a big old, wonderful party for him. And you saw the crowd, anyone that saw him was on the Twitter spaces and just seen, just all around what the college football scene was a week ago. They saw a sold out crowd in Wyoming. And when you have moments like that on a down season, like the Wyoming Cowboys are having, probably not going to make a bowl game. Well, you're not going to make a bowl game now after the loss, but it just seemed like the situation where the Wyoming offense is going to do enough and the defense is going to make enough plays to ultimately get out of town with the victory. And everyone's going to be having themselves a wonderful weekend out there in Laramie. Not the case. Nevada. So Nevada had the 55-10 outburst versus San Jose State. They got a couple coaches fired. It was a crazy result. But, I would say that Nevada, this is now back-to-back weeks with them where, it's kind of like a day late and a dollar short for them, just because they finally got this, I would say, 1-2 punch going now with Chubba Purdy and Caleb Ramzier. Of course, Purdy, a quarterback, started the season, didn't look good. He was on the team last year. He was involved in a lot of these, gadget packages last year with the Wolfpack, and where he would kind of, be on these jet sweeps and the toss plays, or he'd come in and throw a play here and there. But now he's been used exclusively on the ground. He really hasn't been throwing all too much since Carter Jones has been in at quarterback. But when you got Caleb Ramzier, who's really an underclassman that's been rock solid for them, and he's been one of their lead backs, but especially over the past 2 weeks, he's been really good. And you throw in kind of Purdy's versatility to kind of run and stretch the field and, force the opposition to make a tackle on you in space. That's a really good, duo that Nevada's kind of relied on to open up their offense and kind of say, hey, we got a true freshman at quarterback. Let's take some pressure off of him. Purdy and Ramzier had 31 carries combined, 154 yards. And, like we said, they dominated for San Jose State. I thought they kickstarted the Nevada offense against Wyoming and, really took pressure off that freshman quarterback. Wyoming's offense continues to be broken, and, they've made some changes. Like they went a different direction with the offensive coordinator, Jay Johnson. They've done a whole bunch of different things to try to kind of clear up, these offensive miscues. And, their personnel's not great at these positions. They're young. You're a little bit younger at the running back position. They're not, I would say, as physical as what they had in Harris and Whaley 2 years ago, but their backs are still respectable. Their wide receivers have, kind of always been underwhelming. I liked Chris Durr, but he's kind of fizzled out, and defenses have been able to play him pretty well. So it's kind of been the same old song and dance here with Wyoming here for like this whole season, and going back to it last year. Like, they very much have to ugly up the game, and we know how Wyoming likes to play, right? They're going to rely on their defense, and they just hope that they could get a takeaway themselves and get a turnover and score a defensive touchdown, and ugly up the game enough that their offense can just put up enough points. And both teams had long drives in this game. They both missed field goals. I don't know how that Wyoming field goal was no good, if anyone watched the game. But still, even their like no huddle offense, like when they needed a touchdown, when you're down 6 points and you need a touchdown and an extra point to go win the game, the 2-minute drill was just tough to watch. I know they kind of had a little, weird kerfuffle there, trying to give the ball to the umpire, and he doesn't grab it and he's taking his time. Those plays happen sometimes, but it was just the no huddle offense for Wyoming, I thought, was just kind of really not firing at all cylinders. Obviously you didn't score, but man, it looks like it's like they weren't even practicing an operation like that. So I don't know. I don't know really what the future is with Wyoming. I wouldn't be shocked if they kind of pivot to a new coach, because they got to find a way. The NIL is not crazy over there, but like they got to find a way to recruit out there. It's just crazy because we said they have to win these games in certain ways, and you're just not going to be able to compete over the course of, several seasons playing like this. It's just not sustainable. You got to have an offense where, you could stay on the field, because that defense has been really good this year. And the fact that they're on the field for, so long, the Cowboys offense just goes 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out all the time. I don't care how good your defense is. When you're fatigued, by the time the second half rolls around, you're just going to have tired legs, and you're going to have busted coverages, and it's all a domino effect from there. So, interesting to see what Wyoming, that situation is during the offseason, just what's the news coming out of it, because I wouldn't be shocked if they do make some changes, just across the board over there. Meanwhile, for Nevada, hey, like we said, this good for you. Like you're starting to get yourself together here. But I don't know. It's late, but we'll see. We'll see if they could spoil the party this weekend against their in-state rival. New Mexico at Air Force, kind of going towards the Saturday afternoon / evening games now. New Mexico gets it done at Air Force 20-3. Lobos now 8-3 and 5-2 in Mountain West play. Air Force falls to 3-8 and 2-5 in league play. I've just been so impressed with New Mexico, just across the board, offense, defense, special teams. They come ready every single week. We saw that in week 1 versus Michigan. They did not look rattled. They looked ready to play. They really haven't gotten outcoached in a game yet, which is just kind of really impressed me. They're dealing with wide receivers injuries. It doesn't matter. Damon Bankston's been so good for this team. Whether it's, running the ball down the opposition's throat, or if he wants to catch a ball in the backfield, he's just having so much explosivity all over the place. And New Mexico's defense, the fact that you allow Air Force to have 110 rushing yards in the game, that's 2 yards a carry, just a little over that. That's the lowest since 2019 for Air Force on the ground. So that's just unbelievable numbers. Air Force was starting a true freshman or, an underclassman at quarterback because Liam Zarka got hurt. But still, I don't care who's out there for these guys. Kemper Hodges, it was, making his first career start at quarterback, who had a pretty interesting story. Going into this one, like how he's kind of emerged, across the board on the depth chart, and and things like that. And, was a fullback for the last 2 seasons at Air Force. And, it's kind of like, hey, we need another quarterback. We need another guy in the rotation. And, there you go. Making his first career start. New Mexico's defense was just kind of all over it. And, they kind of jumped on him early, and then really we're just kind of, trading field position from there. And, it was one of those games where the defense was sticking in front of Air Force the whole time. And we already know Air Force coming from behind is just not a good recipe for success. So, and, down 2 possessions, New Mexico was able to adjust their defense accordingly, and really slow down that Falcon offense, just overall. But very impressed with Jason Eck. Jack Lane not making mistakes. They got this James Lobstein who comes in for certain packages, and they really like him with his wheels. It's just such a well-coached operation in year one out there in Albuquerque. And, they're in the hunt for the championship, and they're in a really good spot to make the championship. So I couldn't be more impressed with that group. With hands down, with them and San Diego State, big time surprises. I'm a little bit more surprised with the San Diego State, just because I had actually some high hopes for New Mexico, just given Jason Eck's, background at Idaho and the success and that he had in such a quick turnaround over there in Moscow. So couldn't be more impressed with New Mexico. And, that fan base deserves it for that football program, because they've been in the basement for so long. Colorado State and Boise State, senior day out there in Boise, Idaho, a 49-21 win for the Broncos. So Boise State, this is one of those games where you kind of knew the blueprint that they were going to be able to run on Colorado State, as feisty as, we've seen them in some spots since the whole downward spiral of the Rams program has been, with all the coaching firings and changing at coordinators and different play callers, different quarterbacks. You kind of knew the blueprint here for Boise, that they were going to be able to get a whole lot of push up front and success running the football. And when you have Sire Gaines going for 149 yards and you have all of these explosive 40, 50-yard runs, it's just going to be a field day for this team. So, that's kind of the way this one went. Max Cutforth. So interesting situation here with Boise State and just like the backup quarterback who's now the starter in Cutforth, because he's starting for the injured Maddox Matson. I kind of didn't really understand the game plan 2 weeks ago for San Diego State, because sure, you're trying to keep it conservative to a sense, right? You'd much rather rely on your run game at San Diego State with the really good offensive line that you have up there led by Cage Casey. But I was shocked that, Boise State didn't just try and just switch stuff up with Max Cutforth. Like, their best offensive, production at San Diego State 2 weeks ago was when they went up tempo. And I'm shocked they didn't try to do that a little bit earlier. Some quick completions. It was just really nothing that really impressed, obviously, at San Diego State. But the fact that they didn't change anything was kind of a little bit of a red flag, just given how predictable the offense was going in that game 2 weeks ago. So look, now this Colorado State matchup is a completely different animal, but I just like the fact that, Max Cutforth was able to get some completions under his belt. And you could see, you see the upside, right? Where, obviously Colorado State's is not what he saw. Colorado State's defense is not on the same level as Fresno State and San Diego State, the two defense that he saw prior. But I like the fact that they kind of opened up the playbook this past week versus the Rams. And because you need that. You don't know when he's going to be coming back in. Not sure what the status is with Maddox Matson for the regular season finale versus Utah State. But, this is something that you kind of had to do. So Boise State, as much as they were a gigantic favorite in this game, they needed to learn a little bit more about their quarterback here in Max Cutforth. Meanwhile, for Colorado State. Okay, so look, this Darius Curry kid for the who's been taken over at quarterback. First and foremost, so he did his stupid stuff in the game where he spit on Jaden Virgin Morgan. kudos to Colorado State. Kudos to the Mountain West. That's got no position in the game to be. There's no reason to be doing that crap, right? So kudos to CSU and the Mountain West for, backing everybody up and saying, hey, you're getting suspended, because that's suspension worthy, first and foremost. But as far as this Darius Curry, just at quarterback, when I saw him play 2 weeks ago at New Mexico, all over the place, right? And then you see him versus Boise State. You're like, okay, he makes a play here, he makes a play there, and he turns over the ball. I couldn't help but think about that this guy is simply the Jameis Winston at the college football level. Because Jameis Winston, anyone that watches the NFL on Sunday, especially now at the New York Giants, this guy is as volatile as it gets at the quarterback position. He'll have a 40-yard bomb. He'll make an incredible play on third down. Next play on 1st and 10, interception. And it's going back the other way for a gigantic return. That's kind of what we have in Darius Curry right now. And he's still underclassman. He's still young. But still, it is very much all over the place. But, that's why they're throwing him out there, right? Everybody understands the situation over there at CSU. And, he's had a whole bunch of turnover-worthy plays. They've been picked off quite a bit. But you also kind of see the upside at the same time, which is also, a little bit interesting as well. And, before we get off this game, shout out to Rocky Beers, their tight end. He's a senior. He's still giving a max effort out there in a very difficult situation out there. In his final year at the collegiate level, this guy's still delivering for this group, still, going out there and giving 100%. 7 receptions, 94 yards, and a touchdown at Boise State. I think he had a touchdown prior in the game before versus New Mexico as well. 1 or 2, I believe. But he's been solid for them. And now that, you see wide receivers, Colorado State's injury report every week is longer than anybody's right now. So give them, I got to give my kudos and respect to a guy like Rocky Beers that's still going out there for a team that's not really good. And still showing up every Saturday and representing what's on his uniform. All right. We got 2 more games left on the docks here. Let's go to San Jose State at San Diego State. So San Diego State's won this game 25-3. San Diego State now 9-2 overall, 6-1 in the Mountain West. Meanwhile, San Jose State now 3-8 and 2-5. In league play. This was going to be a tough matchup, obviously, but given the way, for San Jose State, that is, but given the way Hawaii kind of exposed San Diego State's defense, because San Diego State and San Jose State pretty much got the same, I guess, offensive philosophy per se, right? Where they're going to, very much rely on the air and, the run and shoot and the spread and shred. They're not the same offense, but they pretty much run the same base concepts, I would say. So I thought, okay, you know what? This could be a potential, good spot for San Jose State to at least hang around, right? I thought, San Diego State and, they were going to probably have a little bit more success offensively, while at the same time, San Jose State to also, put up a few more points. But when you have Walker Egan have an opening drive interception and then he's injured on the next drive and he's out for the game, that obviously, downgrades things completely, because then you got 2 underclassmen quarterbacks coming in that have 0 experience, navigating this offense. Oh, and by the way, you're going up against not only the best offense in the mountain, or the best defense in the Mountain West, but one of the best G5 defenses in the country this year. So that obviously significantly downgrades kind of everything. The game plan kind, in a sense, kind of goes out the window, just given all of that, right? And, now you got Tom Almasone, freshman at quarterback. Offense changes a little bit, right? You got, a running quarterback, who's most certainly got some arm strength, but I would say it's not the Walker Egan arm strength with the deep ball. I would say Egan's deep ball's better than Amasone, but, those guys are 4 years in difference. So, there's still room to grow there. But I think everyone that out here in San Jose State kind of understands, like, hey, Tama Amasone, this guy can do a lot within this offense. And it changes. because with those wide splits that you have in the spread and shred, the ground game will always be there with Amasone's legs. And you see when he gets out, out of the pocket, he's a tough guy to bring down. I think San Diego State was kind of rattled on the fly, like, whoa, this guy's got a extra gear that we weren't really anticipating. So, the offense changes in that regard. Craig Stutzman kind of said, because he is getting the start at Fresno State this week, kind of said, we're going to take some pieces away, but we're also, going to add on some things as well. So, interested to see how all of that pans out. I was just very, I guess, impressed with Amasone just doing a good job throwing the ball away in certain spots when, everything's kind of covered, because you'll see a lot of underclassmen, a lot of true freshmen. Amasone's a freshman. He's kind of, a lot of these, underclassmen signal callers are kind of, when the play's breaking down and, pressure's on, a lot of those guys are kind of just out there. They kind of feel like they're forced and obligated to make a play in that down and distance. And, we all know that leads to turnovers, that leads to jump balls that get deflected, and that could lead to a turnover. So the fact that he was able to throw the ball away, hey, it's 1st and 10. If it's not there, throw it away. The fact that you have that as a freshman, I think, is a very important attribute that you need as a quarterback that I think some upperclassmen that you watch on Saturdays in some of these games don't really have at times. San Jose State also rolled Danny Scudero in the backfield, just kind of a new wrinkle that they installed versus that elite San Diego State defense. Interested to see if that plays out against Fresno State, who's also been a really good defense this year as a whole. Just kind of getting those easy completions. But here's the deal. San Jose State, with their explosivity, teams have been playing them so much more differently now. They've been playing coverage on them. They're not going to play man and get beat over the top with those speedster wide receivers. They want the Spartans to drive the field, convert on 3rd down, and they'll play their chances as far as them in the red zone. And here's the thing. If it's 4th and 5 and it's at the, just outside the red zone at the 30-yard line, they're going to rely on one of those field goal kickers to make the kick. So, that's the way the defenses are playing the Spartans right now. I think you might have a little bit of an interesting and different scenario given the fact that Thomas Amasone is in at quarterback this week, which, by the way, kudos to Walker Eget. This guy was committed to San Jose State, fresh out of high school. Waited his turn. It was like the 3rd, 4th string quarterback, when he was an underclassman. Got his first start at Western Michigan in like 2021. Was in San Jose his whole career. Waited his turn. Battled with Emmett Brown last year. Didn't win the job. Then won it back midseason. Kind of, there was a lot of anticipation for SJSU this year. We all know it didn't go well. But the fact that you got a guy like Walker Eget that was at one place his whole career and, really climb the ladder to get where he was and really have success and put up the numbers that he did and have a couple of good moments in an SJSU uniform. Mad respect to Walker, because that's hard to come by in today's day of age in college football, where guys are bouncing around. Things might not be going your way. You might be in year 3 of the program that you committed to, and it's just not going well. But the fact that a guy like him stayed the course, there's not a lot of guys like that. So, mad respect to Walker, and he's been great, just with the media, since he's kind of really, emerged as one of the starters going back to last year for the Spartans. As far as San Diego State's concerned, a game that you took care of, right? You took care of that game. I'm interested to see this week. You were able to get away with it with no Jordan Napier and no Bostic at wide receiver, but you're starting to see. I don't know if Donovan Brown's a wide receiver 1. I think that is starting to become, an issue a little bit, where I'd much rather prefer him as a 2 or a 3. And you saw where they went to Nathan Azevedo on like that deep ball and he didn't catch it, right? There was Jada Denegal sailing some passes. So the offensive operation is not great for San Diego State either. I should mention that as well. Utah State at Fresno State, 28-17. The Aggies get it done. Utah State's going bowling under year one of Bronco Mendenhall, 6-5 overall, 4-3 in the Mountain West. Fresno State 7-4, 4-3 in the Mountain West. Things just got a whole lot more hairier for Fresno State as far as them trying to get to a Mountain West championship. They're kind of in the same situation as Hawaii, where they need the metrics and the four-way tiebreakers, and I don't know if the computers will like them enough based on the other team. So I'm going to go ahead and just say that they're done. Interestingly, for Fresno State, they went with E.J. Warner at quarterback. We were talking about Carson Conklin and him trying to grow and things like that. Took care of business at Boise State, right? In a game that they relied on the ground game and their special teams and defense. Then you kind of get this game versus Wyoming, solid matchup, saying, okay, this is kind of a game where I'd like to see Conklin grow a little bit. And then they go back to E.J. Warner, which I thought was pretty interesting. Didn't really see that coming. And then you kind of saw, like, with E.J. Warner, which I didn't realize how bad the numbers were once when they benched him. And then you kind of look at it, and then you kind of see the mistakes that he makes, in the second halves of these games and just, across the board, 60 minutes in a ball game. There's a reason why they went to Conklin, and he had a crucial red zone interception when they were up 3, kind of towards the back end of the third quarter. Gets intercepted, and then Utah State goes back the other way for a touchdown. Completely flipped the game upside down in Utah State's favor. And then when you got Bryson Barnes, I think he's going to be the Mountain West Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year. I don't think there's I'm not going to say that there is, some other guys out there. I think you can maybe throw a Danny Scudero in there, right? There's some other players that have definitely, been on the spot. Calandria could have, a spot in that conversation as well. But to me, Bryson Barnes, he's been the most dynamic quarterback in this league. He's by far probably the most, most difficult guy to game plan for, right? Just given his running capabilities and, the arm strength is most certainly there as well. The fact that, Bryson Barnes, only 16 for 30 passing, not really great, but he has 23 rushing attempts for 113 yards. And you just feel like in this Utah State offense where every 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2, you feel good that Barnes is going to find a way to move the sticks. And a lot of those plays are designed for him. But even when stuff breaks down, you're like, my goodness, like all the reads are taken care of. And there goes Barnes. He needs 2 and he got 8 instead. So, he's definitely a weapon at the quarterback position. We know he's one of these old guys that have been around forever. But, man, he's been really good. And is what's been really in his first full year as a starter where, hey, in the preseason, you're the guy and you're going to be the man in charge that steers us where we want to go this season. He's been awesome. I thought early on in the season, Utah State's defense was kind of allowing those big explosive plays. And I would say over the past 2 to 3 weeks, they've really minimized it. And, that's what happens when you got 2 really good guys on the back end of your defense, and Ike Larson and Noah Avenger. Remember, Larson was, I think, suspended for like 6 games. He comes back, starting to get reacclimated with this group. Avenger's been a household name in the Mountain West, formerly at New Mexico. And both of those guys led the team in tackles and pass breakups in this game versus Fresno. So they were rock solid. I thought Braden Pegan, wide receiver for, Utah State. I thought he's been one of the more underrated guys in the league this year. And I know you kind of look at the numbers, but it really hasn't been like these flashy, explosive games where he has like 150 yards in a game, right? It's just been a lot of these 8 catches for 75-yard type games. And that's kind of what he had at Fresno State. And, the fact that he's been wide receiver 1 and, they kind of have, Utah State, like they got this running quarterback. They got like these 3 wide receivers that transferred in that are really good, at just, executing when they have to. They could rely on their ground game with the running backs here and there. And, defensively, this is what I always talk about. And this is exactly what Bronco Mendenhall did a year ago at New Mexico. He just found a way to get the most out of this team in November. And I'm very intrigued to get to their game this week. But, man, just one heck of a coaching job in year 1. The fact that he got this team bowl eligible, I mean, they were only projected to win 4 or 5 games this year, so above expectations for this group. And, for Fresno State, you got the rivalry game in San Jose that you're going to be playing for a whole lot of pride for. You got a bunch of these seniors, like a Jacob Spalmer, like a E.J. Warner, like an Azilian Hamilton, like so many others on that defense, right? Some of those guys, it's a new group on that for the most part on that defense. So, some of them are going to kind of get their first taste at the rivalry, but that should be a fun one. And overall, just a missed opportunity for this group. I mean, I thought they controlled the game for the first 2 quarters or so. And then that play that we talked about towards the end of the third just really changed the entire dynamic of it, ultimately for Utah State to win on the road. All right, let's get into our Mountain West Week 14 preview. It's the final week of the regular season. Like we said, we got a couple games on Friday. And half the games on Friday, half the games on Saturday. So a healthy balance between the two, between all of those. Let's start out with the Friday matchups. We got Air Force at Colorado State. The Ram Falcon trophy up for grabs for someone's going to be under possession of this trophy for the long-term future because Colorado State and Air Force don't have plans to have, scheduling games, for who knows how long. Because, of course, Colorado State's going to the Pac-12. We'll see if that happens with the new regime out there in Fort Collins. But Air Force, 15-3 since 2006. This has been a one-sided series. The Falcons got 4 straight wins in Fort Collins. Last year, Colorado State won 21-13. This has always been one of those fun games. I remember a few years ago, this game was just a fleet of snow, and it was so much fun to watch. And I think Air Force just went with that triple option, and it was lights out from there. I think Air Force is going to win this game. I think it'll be ugly. Colorado State, I imagine, is going to go back to Jackson Brousseau because Darius Curry is suspended. Air Force, I think they're going to go with the Hodge kid, Kemper Hodges again. I mean, this is a coin flip game, but I would probably lean with Air Force when it was all said and done, because that defense has played better over the past couple weeks, right? It's just all of a sudden their offense has kind of dropped off. So it's amazing how the season things can spiral and it could kind of go different directions with certain units. And of course that factors in with injuries, but that Air Force defense has been playing much better compared to what they were a few weeks ago. And, that's a unit that's been much better, but the offense has kind of also, dropped off significantly at the same time. I think they'll do enough. I think Troy Calhoun will have the Colorado State offense on lockdown. They'll do enough and they'll make enough plays on offense to ultimately get it done. Game of the week. This is San Diego State and New Mexico on Friday in Albuquerque, which, by the way, let's go ahead and, just kind of break down the scenario here. So looks like a whole lot looks pretty complex, the scenario, as far as who's in, who's out for the Mountain West Championship. Let's just break it down like this. San Diego State, if you win the game in Albuquerque, New Mexico, not only are you in the Mountain West Championship game, but you host it. Okay? If Boise State beats Utah State in Logan, Utah, if Boise State wins, they are in with the win and a San Diego State win. If New Mexico wins and beats San Diego State in Albuquerque, they host with the win and a Utah State win, but they'll be in if they just beat the Aztecs here. And then if UNLV, a whole lot of stuff has to happen, they're in the championship game with the win against Nevada, a Utah State win over Boise State, and then San Diego State beats New Mexico. So a whole bunch of scenarios there. And then you kind of throw in the Fresno States, the Hawaiis, and the Utah States. That would have to be a crazy, scenario where where everybody loses their game and it's like a 5-way tiebreaker for 5-3 league record. I don't think that's going to happen. I think New Mexico is going to win this game. I think this is hands down one of the biggest games since I can remember, like here with the New Mexico Lobos, where they got a chance to really control their own destiny as far as, make it to this thing. And this would be, there's been a bunch of fun stories and really, teams that have came out of nowhere just in the college football sport this year. this would be on the top of the list if the New Mexico Lobos get to the conference championship game, regardless of what happens next week in the game. The fact that you're going to get in there with the year one head coach and no one had really any expectations for you, that would be incredible. And I think New Mexico is going to get it done. I kind of talked about it with San Diego State's offense. Jaden Denegal, through the first half of the season, looked, I would say, pretty good running the offense when he had all of his weapons, right? But I think the fact that they've lost Bostic and Napier, I think at wide receiver, Lucky Sutton's really good. But I think New Mexico's defense, I mean, you saw what they did to Air Force against that ground attack. I think they're going to have this San Diego State run game on lockdown. I think yards are going to be hard to come by for Lucky Sutton on the ground. And I think New Mexico, against this New Mexico's offense against San Diego State's defense, I think they're going to find some wrinkles. They're going to install some stuff this week where they're not going to see some things coming. I wouldn't be shocked to see a DJ McKinney passing play, trick play. We saw that week 1 versus Michigan. I wouldn't be shocked if they reinstall that. James Lobstein, I think, is going to be involved in this game as well. Little change at pace at quarterback. I think Keegan Johnson versus Chris Johnson, I think, is going to be an awesome matchup to watch between the Lobo wide receiver and the San Diego State potential first-round cornerback in the NFL draft this spring. There's just so many matchups to kind of really look at. Sean Lewis has had a terrific year. Jason X had himself a fantastic season in year 1 in Albuquerque. And look, New Mexico, I think this place is going to be sold out. This place is going to be on fire on Friday afternoon. I think this has a chance to get to 30,000 plus in University Stadium. That is the place to be this weekend. And I think New Mexico is going to find a way to make it happen. Even the field goal kickers are really good in this game. Gabe Placencia and Druzicki at New Mexico's kicker. So that's a dynamic in there as well that I think could play a factor. But I think the difference in this game will be, it's going to be very slim margin. I think New Mexico being at home helps. And I think the fact that New Mexico having a home crowd, I think can rattle Jaden Denegal a little bit. Because he hasn't really been hasn't been around those situations this year as much. He hasn't really played in too many hostile environments. So I think New Mexico gets it done, but in a very fun game that's going to obviously be on the top of everybody's college football selection board on Friday. And then Boise State at Utah State to kind of round off things on Friday. So this is a game every single year I always get suckered into kind of liking Utah State. Hey, Utah State's offense is good. I know their defense is kind of Swiss cheese. That's kind of what I've thought over the years. They can just simply outscore them. And then Boise State finds a way to every year and puts up 300 yards on the ground, it seems like. As Mountain West members, Boise State's won 11 of the last 12 matchups, including the last 4 in Logan. But this is a different situation, I feel like, with Utah State. I think the fact that, Boise State, they rely on their ground game, of course, but I think it's important that Utah State has a guy like Bronco Mendenhall as the head coach, because you're starting to see he gets the most out of his defense. He finds, he just finds ways to maximize his talent at this time of the year. The game says what it says. Boise State's a 3-point road favorite. I think that's the proper and perfect number. I think the wise guys in Vegas got it right. I'm going to go ahead and say Boise State wins this game by 3. I think it'll be a hard-fought game. I don't feel good about it at all. This is going to be an awesome watch. Utah State, their last 6 losses in this head-to-head series have came by 19 plus. I think this is going to be a much more tighter game. It's going to be senior day as well out there in Logan, Utah. Based on the way the point spread is, my guess is that Max Cutforth is starting this game, which tells me that they're going to rely on the ground a whole lot more. I think both teams are going to be able to have their way. Boise State lost Amarion McCoy last week, one of their better corners. So I think Braden Pegan will be able to find his spots in that Boise State defense. I think this is high scoring. Expect a whole lot of points. Both offenses be successful. I think Boise State's going to barely find a way to get it done out there in the state of Utah. Let's go to Saturday. We got the Fremont Cannon rivalry game, the 51st battle between UNLV and Nevada. This game's in Reno. Nevada has won, or they've lost 4 straight at home in this rivalry, or 4 straight home finales, which for the most part, this game's being played in the last game, in the regular season finale. But regardless, Nevada's been, they've had 2 good weeks now, right? Where they've been able to rely on some things. I do think, though, this is a UNLV victory. I think Paul Gunther's defense kind of adjusting now. Towards the back end of the year, they put really good performances together. And I think offensively, this should be a game where, UNLV is able to really stretch out the field with Calandria. I'd expect some explosives on the ground and through the air here. UNLV gets it done. I think they could put up a high number, but I think Nevada is going to be able to put up a few more points than what we've seen in some of their losses, prior to that San Jose State game. When it was a disaster. They've had a bunch of disastrous conference games this year. I think this will be a losing effort for the Wolfpack, but I think it'll look a whole lot better. And I think it's some momentum going into the offseason, which is something I always like, especially for a struggling bunch like Nevada and the year that they had in 2025. All right, let's go out to the battle for the Valley, San Jose State and Fresno State. This game in San Jose, it's a Saturday evening kick out there in the Bay Area. These 2 teams did not have the season that they wanted. We all know that. But this is one of those games you got to throw the record out the window. I say it for every rivalry, but everybody's getting up for this game. These teams don't like each other. Since 2017, San Jose State is 6-2 on Senior Day. I found that to be pretty interesting. So the game last year was in Fresno. SJSU got blasted in the game. It was kind of like in the week 8, week 9 range. Didn't really happen towards the back end of the season. Was kind of just plopped right in the middle of the schedule. This one, I think, just has a little bit more juice for people out there in San Jose, just given the fact that it's on Senior Day. You got a lot of guys that they're going to be sending out here, in particular on that defense. A couple offensive linemen as well for San Jose State that will be playing their final home game. I think this provides an interesting dynamic with Tama Amasoni at quarterback. I kind of already talked about it. Fresno State's going to have to change some things. I'm interested to see who Fresno starts at quarterback. I haven't really read anything on it yet. Regardless, they're going to rely on the run game here with Rayshawn Luke and Bryson Donaldson. So this is going to come down to, hey, San Jose State, Woj Filiamatu at defensive coordinator coming in for Derek Odom. Can you find a way to stop this ground game? Because if you minimize this ground game, if you put Fresno State in 3rd and medium, 3rd and long situations and have to rely on EJ Warner to make a play with his wide receiver personnel, that's really not up to par. This team is not built through the air. I think we know that if we've been watching Fresno State this year. That is when you could kind of get in harm's way a little bit. You could kind of force a mistake here and there, right? You could have, Jordan Pollard, you could have a tip ball at the line of scrimmage and Pollard interception, right? So there's different dynamics to this. I'm very interested to see how it plays out. Everybody has their weakness here. San Jose State's kicking game hasn't been reliable this year. Fresno State's offense, if you put them in those situations like I talked about, that's a downside to their game. Fresno State's defense is really good. San Jose State was able to kind of bounce back performance, but I talked about it. I thought, it was more so San Diego State limiting themselves in a sense as well. I don't know. This would be a close game. It's a rivalry game. Anything could happen. 2 years ago, San Jose State was an underdog in this game, I believe, and it was over at the end of the first quarter. Last time they played at San Jose. So this is going to be a fun watch. It's going to be a fun watch. I'll be out there in attendance. I'll be calling the game on the radio airwaves. So should be fun. Fun one across the board. And then Wyoming at Hawaii. Hawaii. So they've pulled off 4 straight upsets on Senior Day, believe it or not. But now they're a favorite in this spot. Wyoming's lost 3 straight games in Hawaii. This is just tough sledding for the Wyoming Cowboys. I think Hawaii's going to be able to kind of do what they want in this game. I think they'll put up 30 points. I don't think Wyoming's going to be able to put up that number. This is going to be I think this is going to be a great moment to end just a terrific 2025 for Hawaii. I know they still got the bowl game, but I think this is an 8-win season for the Rainbow Warriors. And I think anyone that is affiliated with Hawaii and is a Rainbow Warrior fan, you got to be ecstatic for the year this year. For Timmy Chang in year 4, what you got in Micah Alahado, there's a whole lot to be happy about out there on the island. And I think this is just kind of the one more flex. This is the final flex your muscles game as far as, against a Mountain West opponent, where you get to really go out there and put a really solid game on tape across the board here, because I don't think Wyoming is going to have any success against, against that defense led by Dennis Thurman. Before we get out of here, we got a couple rivalry games that I do want to talk about, just over the course of the weekend here. Georgia and Georgia Tech. That game is in Atlanta, Georgia. Georgia Tech's coming off their conference loss versus Pitt. Just a brutal loss, a loss that you can't have if you're the Yellow Jackets and Brett Key. Now they get this game that's always close every single year, even when Georgia Tech really didn't have the personnel to really keep it close over the years. This game is always a tight battle, right? And now you get this Georgia Tech team that is, that's pissed off coming off the Pitt loss. And last year, this game went to 7, 8, 9 overtime, something silly along those lines. Georgia Tech's got a chance to pull this game outright. I'm very excited to see this one. And, Georgia, they just kind of always never really put their best work together across the board against this Georgia Tech team. Something about it. Very fun watch. Arizona and Arizona State, a game that's obviously heated in the state of Arizona. I think Arizona is going to find a way to get this done. Something that hasn't gotten talked about enough across the country. It's just been Brent Brennan's year 2 out there in Tucson. What is he like? He's got 7 wins, can make it an 8-win season. Big 12 championships out of the picture right now, but Arizona Wildcats, after, a season where a year ago, they had, Tetaroa McMillan at wide receiver, and, Jed Fish kind of left that program in a really good spot. Now Arizona, Brennan was on the hot seat in year 1, which, I understand it was a terrible year, but you got to give him another. People had to be patient with that. And you kind of see the results now. They're much more balanced on both sides. Fafita's had a great year defensively with that Danny Gonzalez, that defensive coordinator. He's been awesome calling the plays and getting that team, back to what it was defensively when it was under Fish. So Arizona, they're playing a Jeff Sims-led Arizona State Sun Devil team. They've been feisty the past few weeks, but I think this game this game on the road for the Wildcats, I think they're going to get it done. Very fun watch. The Egg Bowl on Friday, Ole Miss at Mississippi State. Whole lot of rumors circulating around Lane Kiffin right now. Is he going to take the LSU job? Is this a distraction for the rivalry game? I think Ole Miss will get it done. It will not be pretty, though. Very fun watch every year. It's always it's always on Thanksgiving or on Black Friday. And this game is always tighter than what it is, right? Even when the Bulldogs of Mississippi State don't even really have the guns to keep up with the explosive Lane Kiffin offense. Should be a good one. Always a fun watch that always makes the multi-view every year. Texas A&M and Texas. Man, oh man, this is going to be absolute fireworks. You got this Texas Longhorn team that's not been playing to their expectations this year, but you're starting to see this offense really come around now under Arch Manning. And meanwhile, you got this Texas A&M team who got their scared away 2 weeks ago versus South Carolina, is coming off a strong W last week. Now they're on the road in Austin after dropping this very game last year in College Station. Texas A&M is favored on the road. I think they get it done. This is, I think A&M is going to be in the SEC championship game. I think this is the chance. This is revenge from last year, officially burying the Longhorns. They kind of found a spark. This is going to be a shootout. I think both teams will have success in what they want to do here. I know a lot of these SEC primetime games typically are low scoring and tactical, but last year's game was low scoring and tactical. And I think we have a different game script this year. I think both offenses are playing too well. And as good as both defenses are, I know the Longhorns are dealing with a couple injuries as well. A&M has kind of showed a little lapses defensively against some, subpar opponents in the SEC. Very fun game. And then two more on the way out here. Vanderbilt at Tennessee. Vanderbilt still alive in the college football playoff conversation. You got to get it done in Knoxville this week. I think Tennessee's outside of the conversation now with 3 losses overall. I think Vanderbilt finds a way to get it done on the road. Diego Pavia, you only got a few more games left in your career, bud. And I think this is one of the more bigger moments that he has. I think he could have a game-winning touchdown drive, and it's kind of like Pavia's had a bunch of fun moments in his career, especially in a Vanderbilt uniform, but this could really be on the top of the list. If he gets a W here, I think he will. That'll be a fun watch this weekend, of course. And then the Iron Bowl. What more do you want? Alabama at Auburn. This game is in Auburn. If there's any get-up spot for the Auburn Tigers, it is this game right here. And we've seen Alabama always plays down to their opponent. You want Kalen DeBoer facing against a ranked team compared to somebody that is completely on the bottom of the totem pole in the conference, right? Look at his loss to Florida State early in the year. Look at all the losses he took last year in year 1 in Tuscaloosa. So this is not a very great situation for Kalen DeBoer under Alabama here. But still, we all know Alabama's the better team. This game's on the road. Auburn, Alabama is going to be on fire, Jordan-Hare Stadium. So this is always makes the list every single year. Even I think, what was it, last year, 2 years ago? It took a crazy catch in the end zone. I'm blanking on who it was. One of the Alabama receivers. Was it Jermaine Burton? Might have been Burton. Who made a crazy catch on like 4th and 18 for, I think it was last year, like a 4th and 17. It was for Alabama in the end zone when Milroe was at quarterback. So these games are always nuts. They're hardly ever blowouts. We've had some historic games between these two teams, and I think this got a chance for another 1 possession score and a very fun game to watch this weekend. So that will do it. Rivalry week is always fun. You kind of get a couple skirmishes, back and forth. These teams don't like each other. Like I said, you always throw the records out the window, which always leaves, this is why you play the game, right? And, as a college football fan, it's very much fun to watch these games, especially when you got 4 of them going on the multi-view. This is the week where there's always drama, and when you think a team kind of has the inside track to the championship, the following week, the team that the quote unquote season's over, the underdog per se, in these games, always find a way to third party the conversation and ruin the other team's season. So that's what makes these rivalry games so great. Can't rule out anything. Fluky stuff happens. Silly plays and silly results come to play here. So sit back, enjoy the games. This is the final week where we're going to really have a full slate of college football. So sit back, enjoy it. Next week's conference championship week, and we'll be back breaking down all the games. Once again, I'm your host, Nick Urias. Enjoy the holiday. Enjoy, of course, the games that we got on the docks this week, and we'll be talking next week, everyone. Once again, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast.